Let's go around the room and reintroduce who's here at the table.
Is the machine recording?
I think the machinery must be, I think it's still recording. Yeah.
I don't say the
Is
clerk.
that with you, Ms. Tucker?
Julia Tucker.
Bill Starr.
Adam Trombley.
Jennifer Johnston?
Cam Steele. Dick Training.
I'll be great, Jackson.
Paul Orman.
And Mr. Bowski is just outside the door, and Mr. Hall is just outside the door.
George Michaelis.
Mahoney.
Jay Kendall. Rick Miller.
Okay, who will be presenting?
Me.
I'll start.
Oh, and Mr. Birch is with us by phone.
And Ernie Hall.
Thank you.
I'll start. I can use my new guy card once, so I thought I'd use yours and just say hi. It's part of those other duties as assigned, and so far I'm kind of enjoying it. I just want to say there's a really good group of hardworking people down there at ML&P. Just have nothing but good things to say about them. Good group. They're working hard, doing things to the right. There's a lot of peripheral issues going on. I've just been going from meeting to meeting. I just came from the EPMC meeting, which is the Bradley Project Management Committee, and dealing with issues with Homer Electric. I'm just giving you the highlights here, but Lucinda and Rick will kind of present the financials, so I'll let it go from there.
Okay, great.
Ms. Johnston, do we have till 1 o'clock?
Well, yes, till 1, and if we need more time, we can extend to 2, yeah, 2, not
Because I
1.
can go really fast or slow. I'll go fast.
And do you want people to interrupt you or questions afterwards?
To me, it's more collaborative, because if you have a question, you just ask it.
Okay.
So what we plan to do today, and Rick and I worked on this, is to go through our preliminary year-end 2013 actuals in regard to finance, with a focus mostly on cash flow, because it's my understanding that that was the objective of this conversation. And then, of course, as you know, cash flow impacts our ability to make our dividend payment as well as fund our capital programs. So we'll talk a little bit about that briefly, just go over a little bit about the dividend, and then share with you what we plan to do in terms of fine-tuning our cash management going forward. So with that, if we could go to the first page inside of the document, what you will see is our revenue and expense statement with 2012 and then 13 as a comparison to budget and the delta. And I will at this point just go through the highlights because I know you've had several briefings over the past 6 months about ML&P. But based on where we are at today, we believe our total revenues to be down from budget $21 million. And this is largely due to the fact that we anticipated the full rate increase associated with SPP to be in effect for the full year, but it was not. So as a result, that drove a lower revenue. And additionally, as we've discussed in the past, our sales for resale number is significantly lower. And this is largely due to the fact that Golden Valley is making its power purchases from Chugach rather than from ML&P. Now, we understand that that contract, that purchase contract will expire in August of this year, so there may be an opportunity for us to pick back up those sales.
Okay, Mr. Trainee first.
Lucinda, I see military here, it's down $1,700,000. What happened? Is it just military using less power?
It's down compared to budget because we anticipated higher revenues due to a higher rate.
Okay.
Okay, so it's really, it's largely about the rate.
And-
The landfill to trash the gas project at Fort Rich has reduced sales to Fort Rich.
But that was
Sure.
included in budget.
Yes, okay.
Okay, so that was.
That's right.
Okay, that, if you
Sorry.
compare 13 to 12, you might see that. 2013, and we discussed this when we did the budget, we anticipated revenues to be about 1.8 million less due to the equipment, the during on sales at our trash was. So,
Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you mentioned that Golden Valley is purchasing power from Chugach instead of ML&P because it's cheaper.
actually not.
That's okay. Then my next follow-up question is why?
They don't like it.
You know?
I don't know.
We believe that they basically got into a take-or-pay gas contract that Chugach provided. It would provide the gas to Chugach Electric, and basically, if they don't buy the power from Chugach, they're paying for it anyway. But our price, we've dropped our price quite a bit. As you remember when we did the presentation to you on the budget presentation, I had a slide on sales for resale. Our price averaged in 2012 was $104 per megawatt hour. We dropped it down to $63 per megawatt hour, and we're still not making hardly any sales. When that natural gas contract expires in August, hopefully we can make a little sales. The sales really benefit our customers. We don't get to keep the margins. They get returned to our customers through COPA. In 2012, on $16.4 million of sales, we got to keep less than $400,000 as basically O&M costs. We recovered the cost of the fuel, but the margins, profits over $7 million went back to the customer.
We're in negotiations to start selling again in September.
Golden Valley? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, so I'm looking at total expenses.
I didn't know your past revenues. Can I ask you a question? One of these items, and I believe was the one that triggered me, I picked this actually up off of one of your quarterly summary reports with the interest earnings in the general cash pool. Where is the interest generated? Is that the cash on hand specific to the allocated cash on hand that they generate to the cash pool?
It would be in the miscellaneous non-operating revenue line item.
Yep.
And you can see it's down $239,000 compared to budget, but down.
What about the line above it, Lucinda, where it says they're contributed, they get interest from the general cash pool as well?
Yes, I mean, that's lower because, first of all, we have less money in the cash pool because of the commercial paper program, and then in combination with lower
Right.
interest rates, yes.
And that was the general start of my concern, and I'll not be told that I know exactly what I'm talking about in there, but that's where it started for me, was seeing that, and then specifically this enterprise having sort of a historic low. You indicated in the earlier slide that it's 10 million sort of number, and I think I saw it even lower than that.
You did, and we're going to, there are different points in the year
Yes.
where your cash balances are going to fluctuate based on working capital needs
Yes.
as well as your capital expenditures. And so we'll talk a little bit about that.
Okay, if you're going to do it
on the
later
next
on, then
slide.
I'll wait, but
Yeah.
my big concern is in fact that working capital, and then
Right.
if we had a windstorm or we had a major something, we wouldn't do it.
Yep.
So
And we're going to go into that pretty deep, and what I'm doing here
Sure.
first is providing a framework
I
to
got it.
understand the cash, so that we can then talk about the cash.
Okay, and then
Okay.
while you're talking about expenses, also the forward-looking slide talks about where you might have used capital monies for operating expenses. Is that reflected in here, or is that something else that you're going to tell us?
That would not be here because these have been adjusted
I
to
see.
make those corrections. But we will talk about the cash balances
As
on
long
the
as
next
you-
slide, and we do differentiate between operating capital and restricted.
Operating capital.
Capital and restricted, they're three different buckets of cash.
Yeah, in one of your slides, you referenced the fact that capital monies were used for operating expenses, and that's what I'm zeroing in on. Did in fact that occur? It
think
happened at
that's-
Solid Waste Services some time back, and I wondered.
Yes, that did occur, and that was one of the reasons why those earlier numbers that I had seen in regard to cash balances were negative.
Show
And
those.
so those, based on reviewing those
I got
numbers, MLP made corrections, and they moved those monies in the correct buckets.
Can I expand just a minute on that, because then I'll be done. So when you did that adjustment, did in fact you move commercial paper money over to that then, to take the capital monies and move it into operational to zero out that number?
No, commercial
Where did the
paper-
money come from to slide it over and correct that imbalance?
Okay, first of all, commercial paper can only be used for capital projects.
Sure.
And that is its sole purpose. It cannot be used for operating. If it did, I could go to jail.
Can you back
I'm
up
the
one
only
more?
one here that can go to jail, so that's not happening. Who?
You-
No, she's
No.
the CFO.
Just me.
And let me ask you, you just confirmed that there was a situation where we used capital money for operating expenses, correct?
No, we use operating to fund capital. And that was why the operating cash balance was so low, and
Yes.
and so we had made corrections to fix that.
You describe that then.
Pardon me?
What were the corrections?
There was a $3.5 million capital purchase was made out of the operating funds that should have been made out of the capital funds. And so that transfer, it was reviewed, recognized as an error, and a transfer was made to put it in the proper bucket.
Actually, we fund capital projects out of operations at times, and you'll see that further back. And initially, we had, it's a rebuild of sub-16 number by ACS, about a $3.5 million project. We looked at moving that though and getting reimbursed from commercial paper to help out with the operating cash situation, because it looked like it was going to be tight at the end of the year.
There's the principle I'm concerned about, Lucinda.
There's nothing wrong with doing that.
Yes, there is.
It's
You're
a
operating-
capital project, Bill, and it's being funded by commercial paper. It's not an operating project. It's a capitalized
That's not what you
project,
said,
That's not what
but
you
it's
said.
funded from operating money or
I'm sorry,
operations.
you didn't, I'm sorry, you didn't
Okay,
say that.
then
You
maybe
said
I
it
said that
differently.
wrong.
We all heard it differently.
Okay,
You-
I'm
Listen,
sorry.
let me give you some
All
background.
right, please, and
Let me give you some
I'll get
background.
over it, Lucinda. If you say all is well, I believe you.
I know, but you need to understand, Ross Griswold is our guy
Sure.
that manages capital projects, and he manages commercial paper. We don't reimburse using commercial paper until we see the invoice. That
Smart.
means it was a capital project.
Sure.
And so we manage that very closely because it's subject to the IRS eyes.
All right.
And we manage that really
All right,
closely.
and I'm trying to not be defensive here. I'll just raise my hand. This is what I do, guys. This is the checks and balances of government. I pick up something on an October, November report. I ask a question. It turns into a work session. So don't shoot the messenger here, okay? I'm trying to.
Let me say it just a little bit differently. Within the tariff, our rates, we're allowed to spend money on operating dollars in on capital dollars.
As long as you don't draw, my only concern is this, is don't draw your operating capital down so far that if you have a windstorm, or you have something you have to immediately order, or you have to do overtime, that we don't have any cash.
I agree.
And that's all,
I
I
agree.
mean, it's, only observation was you were low. I don't even think you had a period and a half in the bank when I saw the number of payroll. It was low.
Mr.
That's
Hahnemann?
all. I'll leave it alone.
And I guess that's kind of along that same line on that line, interest from general cash pool, and maybe you'll get into it later, so I can defer it if you need to, but you projected in 2000, well, the actual in 2012 was 868. You projected nearly double that in 2013. The actuals came in way under, of course, that delta being nearly 2 million. So is that an anomaly, a one-off? I mean, are we looking forward to this in the future? I mean, how's that work?
It's as we had mentioned earlier, we had less money in the cash pool, and the cash pool at the end of the
But I
year.
thought you said you corrected that.
This is over a period of time. Okay, this represents January through December.
Right.
Okay, so you had sometime in the month, or sometime in the year, so for example, in February, we might have a lot of money in the cash pool. Then in March, we may not. We have 3 pay periods. Then we may issue commercial paper. And, I mean, it's just a constant fluctuation. So what this represents is the addition of January through December for all of that, okay? And so at the end of the year, which is in December, it reflects a singular point in time, which is what the next slide represents.
Okay.
Okay?
I'll follow through. I may have some further questions, but
No, but where I want to go
Okay.
with this,
Proceed, everybody seems to calm their hands.
okay, where I want to go with this is I want you to understand that on a bottom line basis, if you look at the very bottom number, this number represents the cash flow that MLNP generates. Okay, this is a really important number because this is what feeds the organization. So in 2012, it generated $32.5 million. And that money is then used to fund the 2013 dividend, okay, because we have to wait until the financial statements are audited. And it funds the debt payments, and it also funds our capital expenditures. So then when you look at 2013, our estimate here for what do we think the organization generates in cash, it's $28 million. So throughout the year, cumulatively, it generates $28 million. Now, at the end of the year, on December 31st, that is a single day, a single point in time, and that is what is recorded in our year-end financial statements. And that number isn't going to be or represent something like 28, because it's a function of where your working capital is on that day, that singular day, okay? So when we have 32 million, what we had planned, and I'm gonna just jump ahead to go to a couple of slides in where it has the dividend payment there. So we generated in 2012, $33 million, okay, in cash. So the plan was then that 15 million of that would be used to fund the capital program, Plant 2 primarily. 21 million of it is then used to pay our debt service associated with our bonds. And then 6 million was payable for the municipal dividend. And that was approved at the point in time that we did our budget. So this is an example in that this is a healthy organization that is generating good cash to support its capital and its dividend program. However, it was lower in 2013, okay? And so there was concern, and Bill raised a really good question. There was concern about it being lower because if you look at the numbers, it was lower by $7 million. And the reason, as we talked about, is largely because of the not getting the rate increase at the beginning of the year. That was the primary reason for that. And additionally, and we didn't get the rate increase, plus we had to fund SPP. So we had to fund SPP for a total of $3 million in combination with not having the rate increase to support it.
Ms. Gray Jackson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lucinda, what was the estimated revenue from the rate increase? What would it have been that we didn't get?
18 million would have been the full year rate
Okay,
increase.
great.
And so when you think about 2014, the rate increase is in effect. So for 14, we'll have 18 million more in revenues, and then we will be financially strong again relative to comparing to 12.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'd like to move to extend 15 minutes to 2:15.
Second.
Any problem with that? I have one question. We saw some of this happening as it was happening. What was going on at ML&P as far as just managing their expenses at the time? Or was there any opportunity to manage the expenses knowing that your revenues were dropping?
I started informing the general manager and actually our commission probably last summer. So I was concerned about cash, the way it was going. And when we did the budget, the 2014 budget, we cut probably $40 to $50 million out of the capital budget. And of course, that was going forward. But we did look at, and if you look at the expenses, we came in pretty much in every category versus the budget. Labor came in under $2.5 million under the budget. Quite a few of the other items are under the budget. So we did start trying to cut back.
Please go. Oh, Mr. Hahnemann?
So the bottom line is, as I'm hearing, is that the dividend that we were projecting isn't there.
It was there, because if you look at 2012 actuals, you can see,
No, I'm talking about for 2013, is that?
well, for 2013, it's there also. And we have adequate cash to pay it. And that's what I want to show you on the next slide.
Okay.
So what this next slide represents are our cash balances. Now remember, this is a point in time, and these balances also are cumulative. So they don't represent just the prior year's activity. It represents activity from years and years and years ago.
Listen, I don't think we...
Capital program,
Oh, just a 3-year summary?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, just cash balances.
Yeah.
So what I want you to see here is in 2011, in regard to total cash balances, the total was 155 million. In 2012, it dropped to 146 million. And in 2013, it's back up at the end of this year to 155 million. And what we were looking at, particularly in regard to the capital number, as we approached year end, was that could have potentially been a negative number had we not issued some commercial paper in December to reimburse ourselves for expenses that had already been incurred. So we did issue 17 million of commercial paper in the middle of December because we had incurred 17 million in expenses. So that got us to a positive balance. Otherwise, this number would have been negative, but that is a standard part of our financing plan to do this. Our year-end reports have a lot of scrutiny. RCA looks at them, our rating agents look at them, and it was prudent for us to reimburse ourselves for those expenditures so that we would show positive balances.
Mr. Trombley?
Just going back to the dividend, just got me thinking. Under the bottom, the policy change was made in 2012. Am I correct on that?
No.
Or that's the
No,
recommendation?
okay. Yeah, this is what we're going to do going forward
Right,
to prevent
okay,
this
so-
problem.
Okay, so that goes back to, since the numbers were low and MLP pays a dividend, the dividend that they paid isn't in jeopardy or based on our numbers being low. So that's not going to affect anything first quarter budget revisions that we've heard from the fire department. I don't want to compound stuff.
That is absolutely correct.
Okay, all right.
Mr.
Thank you.
Stark?
So just to be clear, you reimbursed yourself for capital outlay, for capital expenses?
Mhm.
Okay.
If you would like to go into the finance office and review the
No,
invoices.
it's just you said 17, and then on the next slide, the next page, it says capital operations were funded by operations for 15 million. So
Okay, that's two different things.
I see.
Okay, commercial paper issued and capital expenditures funded
Mhm.
are different.
And you fund this on the second page, you fund that just pure out of cash, out of checkbook, out of cash on hand.
I didn't understand.
Your cash on hand covers this
Right,
other
yeah,
page.
the 33 million
Yeah.
that was generated by operations
Sure.
was used to fund capital by 15 million. But remember, the organization does not generate enough to fund a $300 million project. So that's why we go into debt and we issue commercial paper.
I get that part.
Okay.
Can I ask
And
one
that's the
question about the
17.
$5 million change order that kind of hit us all by surprise? Where did that fund from?
Commercial paper. Okay, so back to the cash balances slide. I mean, this is what Rick is forecasting for the year end 2013. And it's right aligned with where we were for 2011. The largest number on here, of course, is our restricted cash, and this is largely related to the money that's restricted for Beluga River gas unit. The RCA restricted that money so that it can only be used for capital expenditures, and so that's what it's used for. There are other restrictions in that money, but that is money that we cannot use to fund capital or to fund operations. So moving on, I think we talked about the dividend slide, but I want to talk about the last bullet, and that is what we've done to try to improve this process going forward. What we're going to do is submit some code changes that would require ML&P as well as our other utilities to make their distributions to the general government by specified dates. And then that way they can better manage their cash, and there won't be all this concern about their inability to make a dividend payment because it will have been known and managed upfront and in advance.
The concern that I have is your ability to do just that. If you're getting tight on your commercial paper account is what I see. It's 75 million, you got 55 million forecast for this year. How does that work into the equation? You pay down a certain amount of commercial paper, frees up capacity?
No, we have a $185 million line of credit for
Sure.
commercial
And you have
paper.
75 million left.
Yes, we have 75 million left, and what we will be doing is, as we spend that, probably in the middle part of this year, we'll be evaluating how much have we spent to date, And do we increase our line of credit on our commercial paper program, or is it time to issue a revenue bond? Okay, and then convert it into a 30-year note, 30-year bond.
How many bonds do we have outstanding now for our infrastructure?
For ML&P, many, I don't have.
I mean, is it a lot of money, I guess would be the number?
It equates to a $30 million debt payment.
Because there was a problem in the past where we had trouble getting commercial paper for the port. And I guess I don't want to get into that problem here with ML&P, that our debt to equity ratio or our cash position or our overall. So, I mean, that's my end game here, Lucinda, is to make sure we've got a healthy ability to do just what you said and not find out in June that, oops,
No,
you know.
go to the very last slide. If you go to the very last slide, which is the long-range plan. So, not the question slide, but the slide before the question slide. So what we've done is we've based on, just all the conversation that's occurred about this over the last few months is I'm going to ask ML&P to update their full comprehensive plan and have them do modeling, financial modeling that requires them to meet certain financial targets, which is a 60-40 debt to equity, to have over 100 days of cash outstanding, and to have debt service coverage of 1.5. And these metrics, if they are met, will cause the organization to go all the way back into both looking at its operating costs, its revenues, and its capital expenditures, because they all come together with these three measures.
Will you have that by June, do you think, Lucinda?
That could be hard. We'll work on it more this summer. I've had a vacancy of 5 people in the staff of 22. I'm finally getting a controller starting on Monday. But we've got the year-end close coming up. We've got auditors coming in a few weeks. I've got to get the audited financials out. It's a pretty big production now with all the GASB pronouncements. We've already started working on it. We've actually started looking at the outstanding open work orders to see, capital work orders, to see, okay, can we, we really need to do this? Can we defer it, delay it? So we started the process, but to have the whole plan done by June could be a little tough. I'm more worried about getting these audited financials out the door by June 30.
Yes, I just don't want to wake up June 30 and you're extended your cash available lines of credit. We got a $200 million plan under construction and we don't have any money.
The rate increase to the additional $18 million a year will definitely help. And we appreciate that you guys approved that back last fall.
So if we roll forward to the year end 2014, assuming that the budget assumptions are met, 2014 will generate just under $38 million in cash.
We're on the record.
Pardon me?
We're on the record.
I know, but that's what.
Around.
That's around, yeah, around 38 million, and that's assuming we meet the budget numbers. But, I mean, that's a healthy amount of cash.
Mr. Kendall, I'm looking at you.
Ms. Gray Jackson?
Thank you, Madam Chair, but I had an interest rate question, but it's been answered in this slide, so thank you.
Everybody else fine?
Good.
Oh, Mr. Seaver?
Yeah, my question was, did I understand it correctly? You're saying that you're going to ask ML&P to pay the municipal dividend quarterly?
No, what we're going to do is, upon completion of the audited financial statements, which would verify revenues, because the dividend is based on revenues, we're going to ask them to make it twice, make it in 2 increments. One in August, I think is what I said, and then October. Yeah.
So that gives the municipality the interest growth on it rather than enterprise?
Yeah, that full 0.1%. But, yeah. And what it does is it better enables ML&P to manage their cash. Otherwise, it's all one big lump.
Otherwise, in the end, there isn't
sum
anything
payment.
left.
Mr. Monument?
I guess that's my question. What's the obligation for the dividend? I mean, if they are in fiscal strait, let's just say because of not knowing whether the contract, maybe you expected a sale of $10 million worth of gas or power and it didn't come through. And at the end of the year, how does that, I mean, is the dividend $6 million, it's because it was budgeted and they have to do it? Or is it $6 million because it's contractual, it's in code? I mean,
It's the municipal code indicates that the dividend is 5% of revenues. However, if there would be a situation where ML&P would be cash constrained such that it would cripple their organization, we would probably come to the assembly with an amendment that would amend that dividend, because we would not want to do that. Yeah.
And the sale of natural gas doesn't go on the income statement at all since 2007. It goes into that one restricted investment to be used only for future VRU construction or future natural gas purchases.
So it's to sell the power, not the gas.
Right,
Yeah.
but I think you said power and gas.
I did, I said gas.
That's, who's managing the short-term gas purchase contracts now that Mr. Posey's gone?
We have a group of people, PRA is still on contract, help us with
Are you sitting in that movie? They like us?
that so far.
And the only reason we sell the gas is to get the tax credits from the state of Alaska. And last year was $10 million tax credit we got for the construction at the VRU.
Any other questions? I will say that a similar process, slightly similar process we did, or the administration did with AWWU, as far as modeling and as far as setting up budgeting parameters. And I think all of you have seen the benefits of that approach, and I trust that it will have the same benefits. I guess we're adjourned. Thank you.